Welcome back to the Wargrover Well. And in today's episode, we're going to be going over the Skaven clans and their lore and the various benefits you get from having them. Before we get started, I'd like to just kind of say that thank you all for getting to 1,000 subscribers. That is really awesome. There will be a celebration video up later sometime this week where I will display some of the models that I've painted for you all. It'll probably be a shorter episode. It'll be something a little bit more fun, I guess. Um, I'd also like to say that there has been a lack of uploads, mostly because I have been out of town for the holidays. I went to see my family, and I just kind of needed a little bit of a breather for the holidays, and it was a good break, but uh, regular uploads should resume after this. Um, and a few more announcements. I have a Discord. If you want just another avenue to interact with me or hang out with the community, there will be a link to that in the description. And I have started a Patreon. This is mostly just for me to start making a little bit of income off of my videos so I can do this a little bit more full time. If you are unaware, I work 2 jobs and have a full college schedule. So being able to make a little bit more money off of my hobby would definitely benefit me. That'll also be in the description, but no pressure if you cannot support me in any way. But without further ado, let's get started. First up is Clan Eshin. Clan Eshin has their unique kind of overarching ability that they give is for each Eshin hero in your army, you pick one enemy hero, and you can reroll all wound rolls that target that hero by Eshin units. So it's kind of to emphasize how much of a hero hunters these Eshin assassins are. And then something that all clans give you access to is command traits and artifacts for those heroes from that clan. Um, but there are 3 universal command traits, and those are the first ones. I won't go over them every single time, but they will still be on there for you to read. The 3 universal command traits for all the Skaven clans are reroll wound rolls of 1 in melee for that hero, a 4-up wound or mortal wound pass off to other Skaven tied units nearby, or +1 bravery to Skaven units wholly within 18. And then for the Eshin specific command traits, you get rerolling hit rolls that target the enemy that was chosen in the above, like your overall Eshin assassination. So for this one hero, you can reroll hit and wound rolls that target the chosen hero. The next one is if this Eshin hero is within 1 inch of a terrain feature, it is considered invisible outside of 6 inches, so it cannot be targeted by anything that requires line of sight or missile attacks for that matter. And the last one, it gives fly. So it's just kind of simple. And then for artifacts, there is a lot, and in fact, it's almost entirely once per game stuff. And if you have seen any of my other videos, you know how I feel about once per game abilities. So first off is a once per game fight first. It's fine, I guess. A once per game teleport, which is good. Once per game, you pick one enemy hero within 6 inches, you roll 3d6, and if all of the dice are a 3-up and the combined value of all of those dice is greater than the enemy hero's wound characteristic, that enemy hero is slain. This is just kind of bad. Once per game thing, as well as the range, as well as all of the conditions for this to happen, you're never going to get value out of this. The only Eshin artifact that is not once per game, and the best one out of these is 6 to wound with 1 ranged weapon. Deal D3 mortal wounds in addition to everything. Really powerful. Once per battle, or the next one is once per battle, you can target an enemy within 6 inches, and you give them a -1 to hit, and they cannot pile in. That's good, but kind of sucks that it's only once per game. And the last one is once per game, you can turn a terrain feature within 6 inches into a knothole. You don't physically remove the terrain and replace it with a knothole terrain piece, but it gains all of the rules of a knothole. So that's kind of nice if you like using knotholes. So the battlefield role for Eshin is they are hero hunters and skirmish units. They're kind of a mid-ranged, missile attack heavy clan with lots of like run and shoot or a lot of skirmish tactics. As for their lore, Clan Eshin are mysterious and deadly, even by Skaven standards, and at any given point, it is almost impossible to precisely pinpoint the whereabouts of an Eshin Deathmaster until they strike from the shadows. Um, and then something interesting about Clan Eshin is they are seemingly apolitical. The Clan Eshin are, at least from an outsider's perspective, stable and free from infighting. How much truth there is to this, we don't know. But there's some fun little fact for you. Next is Clan Pestilens. Clan Pestilens has a few different things that they give, but the biggest one is 6s to pray, manifest a great plague, and there are 5 of them. So how they work is every time you do a 6 to pray, you can manifest one of these, but only one can be manifest a turn, and you cannot do the same plague over like 2 times. Each plague can only be used once. First up is the bubonic blight plague. So the closest enemy within 13 takes d6 mortal wounds. If that unit is destroyed, then you pick another unit within 6 inches of the destroyed unit, deal d3, and if that unit is destroyed, repeat. I don't know. I think I made a mistake here on giving a C+ ranking. D6 damage is definitely useful. I think it'd probably be like a B-, probably. A lot of these plagues are good, but not necessarily the best. I think just because you can only use them once and you have to roll a 6 to manifest them. The next one is the Crimson Wheel Curse. So the closest enemy within 13 inches suffers 1 mortal wound at the start of your hero phase, and that unit and every unit within it also suffers 1 mortal wound. So this kind of is 1 damage, and then it is ticking damage for the rest of the game and for everything near it. So pretty okay, I guess, just for some chip damage here and there. The Red Maw Plague, you pick the nearest enemy hero within 13 inches. And in the combat phase, if that hero is within 3 inches of any other models, not from your army, you can treat that hero as friendly until the end of the combat. Next is the Never Plague. You reroll Clan Pestilens prayer rolls for the rest of the game. This is the best one. This is probably the one you will always pick first, just so you can almost guarantee your prayers to go off. Next is the Undulant Scourge. You pick the nearest enemy unit within 13, and you roll dice for each enemy or each model in that unit. On a 5-up, you deal 1 mortal wound. So those are fairly alright. Then onto the command traits. Once again, ignoring the universal Skaven ones, you can give your general rerolling your prayer rolls, or you can give them a rerolling wound rolls for missile attacks for pestilence units wholly within 18. This sounds really powerful, and it kind of is, but you just need to remember that there's only 2 pestilence units in the Skaven roster that have a missile attack, and that is the Verminlord Corruptor and the Plague Claw Catapult. So if you plan on having a lot of Plague Claw Catapults or Corruptors, you might get some value out of this, but it's just important to remember that this command ability is a little bit deceiving. And lastly, on a 4-up, you deal D3 mortal wounds to enemy unit within 3. So it's kind of like a stinky aura in combat. On to artifacts. The first one, you reroll wound rolls of 1 for melee attacks, or for 1 melee weapon, excuse me. And then you can give one of your heroes an unbind, so they can like unbind as if they were a wizard. This one's kind of meh, mostly just because if you really need unbinds, there's the heroic willpower, heroic action. The next one is if a model has been damaged by 1 melee weapon but not slain, on a 2-up, you deal D3 mortal wounds at the end of the combat phase. And then the next one, at the start of the combat phase, you pick one enemy unit within 6, and then on a 2-up you deal 1 mortal wound, on a 5-up you deal D3. This is fine, chip damage really. The next one is probably the best one of the Pestilens artifacts. You get a +2 to move, and you reroll hit rolls. But in your hero phase, if any other Pestilence heroes are within 13 of the bear, you must transfer this artifact to one of them, so it kind of spreads around your heroes. This could be a good or a bad thing. If you properly plan around it, you can get a whole lot of value out of this artifact. And lastly, the bear becomes a priest, and if they are already a priest, you can reroll prayer rolls. That's fine, I suppose. So the battlefield rolls, Clan Pestilens are priests, buffed units, and they are fragile and tend to have a lot of attacks. For their lore, Clan Pestilens are the most foul and disgusting of the Skaven. They worship the great horned rat in its aspect of the great corrupter, and their main overarching goal is to bring the mortal realms to its knees and watch them wither and decay in holy diseases. They closely align with Nurgle, and they are often found allying with Nurgle. And in addition to all this, they search the mortal realms for the fabled 13 Great Plagues. Next is Clan Skryre. I think this is probably one of my more personal favorite clans. Um, their overarching thing that they give is you get D3 plus 3 Warp Spark tokens at the start of the game. And you can spend these Warp Spark tokens to do various effects, but after you resolve these effects at the end of the phase, you roll a dice, and on a 1 you can suffer some mortal wounds. The effects are you can reroll casting or unbinding rolls. You can give 3 different Skryre units, wholly within 13, +1 to ranged damage. Very, very powerful. Or you can reroll hit rolls in combat for these Skaven heroes. Really the best one here is the +1 damage to 3 different Skryre units, or the reroll casting and unbinding rolls. Next is the command traits for Skryre. You can either get +2 Warp Spark tokens, or you can pick one Skryre unit wholly within 13 and reroll missile hit rolls for that unit. That is really, really strong. Oftentimes, Skaven have bad things if you roll ones to hit or just rolling ones in general. So being able to reroll potentially failed hits or potential ones is very powerful. And lastly, this is very strong. You pick 3 weapon team units wholly within 13 and you reroll missile hit rolls. That's really, really strong. If you like rattling guns, like the minigun units, get 3 of these guys and you can go to town really on setting out a lot of firepower. For artifacts, you got a once per game roll a dice, and then on a 6, the closest enemy model within 6 inches is slain. This is just straight up bad. It is a once per battle, and it is unlikely to ever go off. It has really bad conditions to be met. Next is a 5-up mortal wound bounce back, which is just, it's fine, but it doesn't really give any like ward or save or anything, but it's nice, I guess. Next is you get a +1 warp stone per battle round, but it is a warp stone that can only be used on the bearer of the artifact. So just kind of another way to get warp spark tokens, which is powerful. Next is a start of the hero phase. You deal D3 mortal wounds to each enemy unit within 3 inches on a 4-up. The last 2 are pretty interesting. You have pick one Skryre War Machine unit within 3, and you can double its move characteristic. But at the end of the movement phase, on a 4-up, the War Machine suffers D3 mortal wounds. Potentially useful, and also has the potential to do a little bit of self-damage. And lastly, this is a very powerful one. The Vigor Dust Injector, I believe it's called, gives you +1 to charge and +1 to hit rolls for 1 friendly Skaven Tide unit wholly within 12 of the bearer, but in your next hero phase, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. This is really, really strong. definitely recommend taking a Vigor Dust Injector if you're planning to do a bit more of a melee focus, I suppose. Clan Skryre is your ranged firepower clan. They have war machines and crazy mad scientists, and they like warpstone. They are magic cocaine addicted rats. For their lore, Clan Skryre are renowned for their ingenuity and genius, although oftentimes it borders on madness and depravity. These crazy Skaven engineers and warlocks, uh, they oftentimes create great and terrible contraptions, but they're prone to catastrophic failure and self-destruction. Um, a funny little joke that me and my local gaming group have is one of my friends in the group is a Skaven player, and he has a Warlock Bombardier, and we call him Sir Pops a lot because in almost every game that we play, he ends up killing himself because he's either choking on a Warp Spark token or otherwise detonating himself. So there's definitely a little bit of risk reward with this faction. Next is Clan Moulder. They are your beastie boys and war beasts. So their overarching thing is you pick one fighting beast for each master Moulder in your army, and you can give that beast some more wounds. It's D3, and you can reroll hit rolls of 1. Or you can instead of giving more wounds, you can give them a mutation, which is listed down below. There is 6 for Hell Pit Abominations and 3 for Rat Ogres. The Hell Pit Abomination ones are you change their wound characteristic to 14 and you give them a 4-up save. You can give 7 movement and a automatic charge roll of a 7. You get a +1 to each damage roll for Avalanche of Flesh. You can do the regeneration in the enemy hero phase as well as your own. You can reroll the dice roll for Warpstone Spike and reroll wound rolls of 1 in melee. Or you can reroll dice for 2 horrible to die. All of these are very, very, very strong. Definitely gives Hell Pit a little bit more reliability, I would say, and lets you be a little more flexible with them. And just to clarify, you would pick one of these, not all of them. Then the Rat Ogres one are, again, very good. There's not as many, but they're still good. For the Rat Ogre unit that you pick, you can give each Rat Ogre 6 wounds and a 4-up save, which is really strong. That's a lot of wounds to chew through. Or you can give their melee weapons 6 attacks and rerolling charge rolls, very strong. Or you can give them more move at 8 inches and they heal. So lots of good stuff there. There's a typo in here. These command traits and artifacts are for Moulder heroes, not Eshin. Sorry. The 3 command traits for Eshin are when you give a fighting beast more wounds, you can either give them 3 or D6 instead of D3. And then when using the Unleash More and More Beasts, you summon a new unit on a 4-up instead of a 5-up, which is good. Or you give the hero a +1 to their wound characteristic, so they just get a little bit more health. That's probably the least useful of the 3, but they're all useful. For the artifacts, you have a 6s to hit, deal 1 mortal wound in addition. Very strong. Or you can give them a regeneration where they heal D3 in your hero phase. Or you can give an enemy -1 to hit if they are within combat. 6s to hit, or excuse me, 6s to save, you can do a little bit of mortal wound bounce back. You can reroll wound rolls for pack units wholly within 13, very strong. And then lastly, once per game, you can pick one enemy unit within 6 in the shooting phase and roll 1 dice. On a 1, the bearer suffers 1 mortal wound. On a 2 to 5, the enemy suffers D3, or 6 suffers D6. This is okay. It's just kind of a shame it's a once per game ability. So for Clan Moulder, they are your monsters and big beasties. If you like war beasts and crazy Frankenstein rat creatures, that's where you're going to get a lot of this, is in Clan Moulder. For their lore, Clan Moulder are the beast shapers and makers of the Skaven, and they are the cruelest of the cruel, and as such they have a dark reputation. Surprisingly enough, they are the bitter rivals to Clan Skryre, and they will do anything in their power to undermine or outdo Clan Skryre. Next is Clan Verminus. So their unique trait that they give you is you can pick a command trait for up to 6 friendly Claw Lords, if your general is not a Claw Lord. So it buffs up Claw Lords a lot, which is kind of nice. I think they're one of a little bit more underutilized unit. So for your command traits for Verminus heroes, the 3 unique ones they have are pretty okay. You have a once per battle +3 to the attack characteristics of melee, which is good. +1 to wound, or +1 to their wound characteristics, so they just get a little bit more health. This is fine, but a little bit underwhelming. And next is a really fun and unique one that could potentially do some really interesting things, but is unlikely in just the conditions. So how it works is for each hit roll of 1 that targets this general, you give the general a +1, or it says general, but you can give this one to a Claw Lord if it's not your general. Anyway, for each hit roll of 1, you add 1 to the attack characteristics until the end of the phase. So if you have a whole bunch of attacks coming in and they're all missing, you get a lot of attacks back. This is a really cool idea, but unlikely to really give much because it requires you to fight last and get whacked potentially. For artifacts, you have some really good ones. The biggest one is you get just flat +1 damage to your melee weapons. Really strong, especially with some Verminus heroes having a lot of attacks. The next one is rerolling save rolls of 1, and you give a -1 to hit for 1 enemy unit within 3 inches. Very powerful, especially because there's not a lot of rerolling saves of 1 anymore with the introduction of Age of Sigmar 3. The next one is just an aura of -1 bravery. Bravery is not very consistent, not very good. The next one is you can reroll hit and wound rolls of 1, strong. The next one is just kind of a weaker version of the second artifact. It's the same thing of rerolling saves of 1. And the other benefit of it, though, is in combat you can pick one enemy hero within a certain range. I believe it is 13 inches. That has an artifact, and you roll 3d6, and if the roll is exactly 13, that artifact can no longer be used. This is kind of a really bad effect, mostly because it's never going to happen. So all you're getting is a rerolling save rolls of 1, and you already have that in a better form above. Lastly, the last artifact is you can pick one enemy unit within 3 and roll a dice, or not one enemy unit, it's just one unit, and this includes friendly or the bearer of the artifact. And on a 2 to 5, that unit suffers 1 mortal wound. On a 6, it deals D3. This is just bad. Oftentimes, you might not be within combat of an enemy unit, and you can suffer some damage for it. So, not worth it anyway. So, Clan Verminus is your rank and file units. These are your hordes. This is your storm vermin, your regular rats, and they're mostly melee focused. For their lore, out of all of the Skaven clans, Verminus focuses on the art of war and melee combat the most, and they're also the most numerous. And they have teeming hordes of clan rats and storm vermin. Last but not least is Masterclan. This is like the overarching pseudo-secret body that controls all of the Skaven. For their overall ability, each time a Masterclan hero uses a command point, you get that command point back on a 5-up. That's really strong. For command traits, they're universal, or they have the universal Skaven ones, and then the 3 that they have are you can reroll the dice for the CP refund. Very strong. Once per hero phase, you can get a +1 to cast or unbind for a spell or an unbind. Strong. And the last one is you roll a dice each time an enemy receives a command point, and on a 6, you get that command point instead of them. This is very powerful because it can really screw over your opponent's plans to use their command points how they see fit. So with how important command points are in 3.0, that's really strong. Artifacts, you have a few once per game ones. The first one is You once per game roll a dice for each enemy unit within 13 inches, and on a 4-up you deal D3 mortal wounds. As far as once per game things go, this is fine, but eh. Next is a 5-up ward, simple and very strong, considering Amulet of Destiny got nerfed. So 5-up ward is great. The next one is pick one melee weapon, and if an enemy has taken any wounds from this weapon at the end of the battle round, you can deal an additional 1 mortal wound. So a little bit of chip damage. The next once per battle ability is it's a Skaven Brew. So you pick one Skaven Tide unit within 3, and they get a +1 attack, but they suffer D3 mortal wounds. So it does a little damage, and you get another attack, which is valuable. Second to last is Battle Shock immunity for all Skaven units wholly within 13 inches. Strong, but there are other ways to get this, like Screaming Bell or the Endless Spell, but it's good to have, especially for horde armies like Skaven. Lastly, you give enemies -1 to cast within 13, and once per battle you can dispel 1 Endless Spell within 13, just for free. You don't have to roll or anything. So kind of useful, situational if you're up against magic armies or not. So Masterclan is you're manipulating the battlefield through CP mostly, and they tend to be heroes or hero style units. For their lore, Masterclan is the faction that rules over all of Skavendom. They are the Council of the 13 and the Shadow Council of 13. They are agents of subterfuge and manipulation. So that was a fairly long video, but that is all of the Skaven Clans lore and their breakdown. Personally, I think Skaven are one of my favorite factions, lore-wise, as well as to play against them. I think they're really fun and flavorful, so I always enjoy getting to do a Skaven video. Well, before I hop off, I would like to say that I got a new mic. I hope the audio quality was a bit better. If it was or wasn't, please let me know down in the comments so I can try and adjust that for future videos. But without further ado, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like or a comment. And if you enjoy my type of content, consider subscribing. And this has been the Wardrobe of Will, and I'll see you guys next time.